Full time at the San Siro, Milan 0, Arsenal 2. I've learned with this team to expect the unexpected, but I have to say I didn't anticipate anything quite like that in terms of a result. Fantastic result. You never say never with this Arsenal team, but they have surely secured their progression to the next round. It would take something remarkable, even by their standards, to screw it up now. This was an exemplary performance. And Milan, for all the hype, for all the talk, really were the guys who didn't show up. Arsenal did. And while on the one hand, that raises questions about their inability to do so at Brighton and against Manchester City, on the other, you have to praise them. You have to offer them a measure of praise for the way in which they've come out of this difficult period with a really, really positive result. And the first goal was so crucial in that. Milan actually threatened in the early stages, particularly from set pieces. Ospina never particularly convincing in those situations. But we got that first goal. It was Henrik Mkhitaryan, the man who I said I wouldn't have played in this team. I'm sorry, Henrik, I take it back. He took the goal very well. A brilliant Mesut Ozil first-time pass over the top. And Mkhitaryan just skips inside his man. His shot did deflect, but I like the way he put some power in it. So often with Arsenal players, you feel like they sort of try and pass it into the net. He thought, well, I'm going to have a crack. And that means that if it does deflect, it's got a great chance of spinning off past the goalkeeper, as it did in this instance. 2-0, well, it was another Ozil assist. Brilliant flick from Ramsey. Welbeck touched it on. And then Ozil's pass to Ramsey was perfectly weighted, and you couldn't have found a more composed finish than the one the Welshman provided. He was rested at the weekend. Obviously, that didn't work out in terms of the result at Brighton, but you have to say it clearly benefited Ramsey, who had an excellent match tonight. The second half was boring, but not in the way that Arsenal games have been boring of late. Arsenal have been boring of late because they've seemed to play passively, without any passion, without any aggression, without any direction, without any sense of strategy. This was boring because we just controlled the game. We were comfortable, even when we lost both our fullbacks to injury, and they're our backup fullbacks. So we went into this match with no Bellerin and no Monreal. We started it instead with Chambers and Kolasinac. Lost them both, who had very good games in the course of the 90 minutes. Ended with El Neni and Maitland-Niles. Quite who's going to play in those positions on Sunday remains to be seen, but given that our league campaign is kind of out the window, I find it tricky to get too excited about that. This is a fantastic result. There's still an awful long way to go in this competition. Some very good teams left in it, but I think given the run that we were on, we really, really needed something tonight. Arsene Wenger needed something, and credit to him. I thought he got a lot right. I was surprised when I saw the balance of his midfield, with Jack Wilshere starting as the number 10, Ozil ostensibly wide on the right, Mkhitaryan on the left, but it worked out very well for him. And the players at last stepped up. I guess these guys, well, they've responded to the one remaining piece of silverware left on the table. They've slightly stood up to that challenge. And probably some of them are thinking they quite fancy Champions League football next season. But really, back to front, they were very good. Ospina made some good interventions. Mustafi was largely unnoticed, which is what you want from Mustafi. Some great blocks from Koscielny. Everyone who played at fullback had their moments, particularly Kolasinac in that first half was good going forward. That is where he's at his best. In midfield, Xhaka looks a different player to the player we see in the Premier League. I think, to be honest, if Arsenal sell him this summer, he could do worse than move to Serie A, judging by how he coped against Milan, because he looked a much better player. Ramsey, I've spoken about. Ozil, 2 assists. What more can you ask for? That's exactly what he does. Mkhitaryan, a first goal for the club. And Danny Welbeck, who had some of the worst attempts on goal in the game, to be honest. I mean, if we had a finisher in this team, it might have been more than 2-0. It might have been more like that glorious 5-1 at the San Siro a few years back now. But he did work tirelessly, and when things aren't happening for you technically, when your confidence is low, the least you can do as a striker is be that physical focal point. And he did do that. His work rate was excellent. And thankfully, on Sunday, we'll have Aubameyang back in the side. And we shouldn't need to score against Milan next week. We can afford to do what we did in the second half, control it. I liked what Arsene did tonight in terms of setting out his team. It was a substitution that got some criticism online when he withdrew Ozil and brought Holding on, but I liked that he was reactive in the game. He saw that Milan were pushing on. We just needed to keep that clean sheet. It could kill the tie. He brought on a third centre half. I think that was smart management. I still think he should go. Let's be absolutely clear. But that's something worth saying. It's very possible to think Arsenal need to change the manager and also want us to win the Europa League. Those things are not mutually exclusive. If anything, I would love it to be Arsenal's send-off. And also, I don't think there's any situation where Arsenal would go before the end of the season. So I want this end of the season to be as painless as possible. And staying in Europe is really the key to that. As soon as we go out of this competition, things will get very, very messy indeed. So I'm glad we're still in it. Glad we've got a great chance of going through to the next round. I'm glad we finally produced a performance. Sometimes when we're in a rut, you can sort of get into a kind of morbid fascination with how bad it might get. But when you watch your team play well and win, you remember why that's a good thing. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. It's very louche, isn't it? Me lying like this. Very casual. Hope you've enjoyed it. All right, cheers, guys. Thanks for watching.